The sun was setting low over the vast expanse of the Arizona desert, casting long shadows across the dusty terrain. A single rider moved swiftly through the wilderness, her silhouette stark against the amber glow of twilight. Her horse's hooves kicked up clouds of fine sand with every desperate gallop, its breath coming in labored pants as it pushed itself to the brink of exhaustion. She clung tightly to the reins, her face pale and streaked with dirt, her chest heaving from adrenaline and fear. Behind her came the thunderous roar of pursuit, hoarse shouts, cracking whips, and the pounding rhythm of multiple horses closing in fast. The gang of outlaws gave no quarter. Their voices carried curses into the wind like harbingers of doom. Each one rode with grim determination, their faces obscured by bandanas or the fading light, but their intentions were clear. They would stop at nothing until she was caught. She didn't dare look back, though her ears burned with the sound of their relentless advance. Instead, she focused on the horizon ahead, where the land seemed endless and unforgiving. There was nowhere to run, no place to hide. Yet something deep within her refused to give up. Little did she know that fate had other plans for this chase, a twist so extraordinary it would leave even the most hardened outlaw speechless. The journey began earlier that day under a blazing sun, when she fled the small frontier town of Blackwater Crossing after stealing a satchel filled with gold coins. It wasn't greed that drove her, but desperation. Her younger brother lay dying in a makeshift bed back home, his body ravaged by illness and lacking proper medicine. Word reached her of a doctor in another settlement who could save him, but only if paid handsomely. With no money left, she took what little hope remained and ran. But news traveled quickly in these parts, especially about stolen riches. By the time she crossed the outskirts of town, the infamous Black Ridge Gang was already hot on her trail. They were notorious throughout the territory, known for their cruelty and ruthlessness. Led by a man called Red Hargrove, whose reputation alone struck terror into the hearts of men, the gang operated with precision and malice. To them, catching her wasn't just about recovering the gold. It was about making an example out of anyone foolish enough to cross them. As night began to fall, the desert transformed into a different world entirely. The oppressive heat of the day gave way to a chilling breeze, carrying whispers of ghosts past and present. Above, the stars emerged one by one, painting the sky in shades of silver and blue. Below, the ground stretched endlessly, broken only by jagged rocks and sparse vegetation. In the distance, mesas rose like ancient sentinels, watching silently as the drama unfolded below. Her horse stumbled suddenly, nearly throwing her off. She cursed under her breath, pulling back on the reins to steady the animal. Its flanks glistened with sweat, and foam clung to its mouth. She knew it wouldn't last much longer. Neither would she. But then, as if summoned by some divine intervention, a new sound reached her ears, a sound unlike anything she'd ever heard before. It started faintly, almost imperceptible amidst the cacophony of hoofbeats behind her. But soon it grew louder, more distinct, the rhythmic thud of countless hooves hitting the earth. She turned her head slightly, glancing over her shoulder despite knowing better. What she saw froze her heart momentarily. A herd of Mustangs appeared on the horizon, moving like a river of fire against the darkening landscape. Their manes flowed like liquid gold in the moonlight, their eyes wild and untamed. Hundreds of them charged forward, their movements synchronized in a dance older than civilization itself. And they were heading straight toward her. For a moment, she considered veering away, finding another path. But there was none. The canyon walls loomed close now, cutting off any escape route, except the one directly in front of her. Desperation clawed at her chest, but instinct told her to hold her ground. As the first wave of Mustangs approached, she tightened her grip on the reins and urged her own horse forward, praying it would have enough strength to keep pace. The collision happened in an instant. One moment, she was surrounded by chaos. The deafening roar of hooves, the musky scent of wild animals filling the air. The next, she found herself enveloped in a swirling sea of movement, the Mustangs forming a protective barrier around her and her exhausted steed. For reasons unknown, the lead stallion, one massive creature with a coat like polished obsidian, seemed to take notice of her plight. Its piercing gaze met hers briefly, as if acknowledging her presence. before it led the herd onward. Behind her, the Black Ridge gang skidded to a halt, their horses rearing and snorting in panic. The sudden appearance of the Mustang herd had caught them completely off guard. Some tried to follow, urging their mounts into the fray, but the sheer number of wild horses proved too overwhelming. Others shouted orders, waving pistols in the air, but the Mustangs paid them no mind. To the animals, humans were mere intrusions in their domain, unworthy of acknowledgement. Red Hargrove sat atop his horse, his face twisted in rage. He raised his rifle, aiming carefully at the retreating figure now shielded by the stampeding herd. His finger tightened on the trigger, but he hesitated. Shooting into such a mass of moving targets risked hitting one of his own men, or worse, being trampled himself. Reluctantly, he lowered the weapon, barking commands for the group to regroup. They watched helplessly as the woman disappeared into the night, swallowed whole by the untamed spirit of the desert. Hours passed, and the initial fury of the chase gave way to weary resignation. The Mustangs continued their journey without pause, their unrelenting pace forcing both her and her horse to match their stamina. At first, she feared they might abandon her at any moment, leaving her stranded in the middle of nowhere. But instead, the herd maintained its protective formation, keeping her safe while guiding her deeper into unfamiliar territory. By the time dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, the Mustangs finally slowed their charge. They spread out across a wide valley, grazing peacefully on patches of green grass that dotted the otherwise arid landscape. Exhausted and sore, she slid off her horse and collapsed onto the soft earth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Relief washed over her in waves, mingling with gratitude for the unexpected salvation she had received. Yet even as she rested, questions plagued her mind. Why had the Mustangs intervened? How had they known she needed help? Was it coincidence, or something far greater? These thoughts lingered in the back of her consciousness, unresolved yet strangely comforting. As the morning wore on, she noticed something peculiar about the valley. Nestled among the rolling hills was a hidden spring, its crystal-clear waters reflecting the sunlight like a mirror. Surrounding it stood ancient trees, their branches heavy with fruit and leaves rustling softly in the breeze. Birds sang melodious tunes overhead, their songs harmonizing with the gentle lapping of water against stone. It was a place untouched by time, a sanctuary buried deep within the heart of the desert. Curiosity drew her closer, and as she approached the spring, she discovered something even more astonishing. Buried beneath layers of moss and fallen leaves was a chest, ancient and weathered, yet unmistakably crafted by human hands. Her fingers trembled as she brushed away the debris, revealing intricate carvings etched into the wood. Symbols she couldn't decipher adorned the surface, telling stories of a people long forgotten. Inside the chest lay treasures beyond imagining, jewelry, artifacts, and documents written in languages she didn't understand. Among them was a map, faded but still legible, depicting routes leading to places marked with mysterious symbols. She realized then that this valley wasn't merely a refuge. It was a treasure trove of secrets waiting to be uncovered. But little did she know, her discovery would not go unnoticed. Somewhere in the distance, eyes watched her every move, unseen but always aware. And when the Black Ridge gang returned, armed with knowledge of her whereabouts, they brought with them not just vengeance, but an insatiable thirst for the riches she had stumbled upon. Thus began a new chapter in her tale, one of danger, betrayal, and ultimately redemption. For in the Wild West, where legends were born and destinies forged, nothing was ever as simple as it seemed. Until the very end, surprises lurked around every corner, ready to reshape lives forever. The Black Ridge gang did not waste much time before regrouping. Red Hargrove, his fury barely contained, barked orders to his men under the pale light of dawn. They had lost a woman in the chaos of the Mustang stampede, but he was determined to track her down again. No one stole from him and lived to tell the tale, let alone escape with a fortune in gold. Spread out, Hargrove growled, his voice cutting through the stillness of the desert morning. She couldn't have gone far. That horse of hers is near collapse. His eyes narrowed as he surveyed the horizon, searching for any sign of movement. The gang fanned out across the terrain, their boots crunching against the dry earth and rocks. Each man carried a weapon at the ready, their faces grim and resolute. Meanwhile, she remained oblivious to the renewed pursuit, her focus entirely on exploring the hidden treasures of the valley. As she examined the contents of the chest more closely, she found herself drawn to an object unlike anything else, a small, intricately carved amulet hanging from a leather cord. It pulsed faintly with warmth beneath her touch, as though alive. A strange sensation coursed through her veins, something akin to recognition yet tinged with unease. She placed it around her neck, feeling its weight settle against her skin. Hours passed as she wandered deeper into the valley, marveling at the lush greenery that seemed almost surreal amidst the surrounding desert wasteland. Birds flitted between branches, their songs weaving a melody that echoed off the canyon walls. Streams meandered lazily through the landscape, their waters shimmering like liquid silver. Yet despite the beauty surrounding her, a nagging feeling lingered in the back of her mind, a sense that this place was both a gift and a curse. By midday, hunger gnawed at her stomach, and she decided to rest near the spring. Her horse grazed nearby, its exhaustion finally easing as it replenished its strength. She dipped her hands into the cool water, splashing her face to wash away the grime of travel. The reflection staring back at her was unrecognizable, her once bright eyes now shadowed by fatigue, her cheeks hollow from days without proper nourishment. But there was also a spark within them, a glimmer of hope that hadn't been there before. It was then that she noticed the first signs of trouble. A distant sound reached her ears, faint but unmistakable, the rhythmic thud of approaching hoofbeats. Her heart leapt into her throat as she scrambled to her feet, grabbing her rifle and scanning the tree-line. At first, nothing appeared. Then, emerging from the cover of the brush, came two riders clad in dark clothing, their faces obscured by bandanas. "Looks like we found ourselves a little thief," one of them sneered, dismounting with practiced ease. He moved toward her slowly, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his revolver. "Hand over the satchel, sweetheart, and maybe we'll let you live." Her fingers tightened around the rifle, adrenaline surging through her veins. "I don't think so," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "You're not taking anything from me." The outlaw laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "Oh, I wouldn't be so quick to make promises, darling. You see, we've got friends waiting just beyond those hills. And trust me, they won't be nearly as polite as us." Before she could respond, the second rider lunged forward, swinging a lasso aimed directly at her. She ducked instinctively, the rope whistling past her head and embedding itself in the ground behind her. Without hesitation, she fired her rifle, the shot ringing out sharply in the quiet air. The outlaw yelped in pain, clutching his shoulder as blood seeped through his shirt. His companion cursed loudly, drawing his own weapon and firing back. Bullets ricocheted off rocks and trees as the skirmish unfolded. She dove for cover behind a fallen log, reloading her rifle as quickly as possible. The outlaw with the injured shoulder staggered backward, retreating toward his horse. His partner hesitated for only a moment before following suit, clearly unwilling to risk further injury or death. For several long minutes, silence reigned over the valley. She peeked cautiously over the log, ensuring the coast was clear before standing up fully. Breathing heavily, she wiped sweat from her brow and holstered her rifle. Though shaken, she knew better than to celebrate too soon. If what the outlaw said was true, reinforcements were likely close by. Night fell swiftly, blanketing the valley in darkness save for the soft glow of moonlight filtering to the canopy above. She built a small fire near the spring, its flames casting flickering shadows across her weary features. The amulet around her neck glowed faintly in the dim light, drawing her gaze once more. Something about it called to her, whispering secrets she couldn't quite grasp. As she sat lost in thought, a rustling noise caught her attention. Whipping around, she spotted movement among the bushes, a figure stepping cautiously into view. Her hand instinctively reached for her rifle, but the stranger raised their palms in surrender. "Don't shoot," the figure said, their voice low and gravelly. "I mean no harm." She squinted in the firelight, trying to discern who, or what, stood before her. The figure was tall and lean, dressed in weathered clothes that spoke of countless nights spent under the stars. Their face was partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, but their eyes gleamed with intelligence and curiosity. "I'm looking for answers," the stranger continued, lowering themselves onto a nearby rock. "And I believe you might have stumbled upon something unusual." "What do you know?" she asked warily, keeping her rifle trained on despite their apparent non-threatening demeanor. The stranger chuckled softly, reaching inside their coat and pulling out a folded piece of paper. "This map," they explained, unfurling it to reveal markings identical to those etched onto the chest she discovered earlier. "It's been passed down through generations in my family. Some say it leads to untold riches. Others claim it holds keys to powers beyond comprehension. And why should I trust you?" she demanded, her grip on the rifle unwavering. "Because," the stranger replied evenly, "if we don't work together, neither of us will survive what's coming." Before she could respond, a chilling howl split the night, a sound unlike anything she'd ever heard before. It reverberated through the valley, sending shivers down her spine. The stranger's expression darkened, their calm facade cracking slightly. "That wasn't an animal," they muttered, rising to their feet. "And it definitely wasn't human." Whatever force lurked in the shadows, it was closer than either of them realized. As the hours ticked by, they would soon discover that the mysteries of the valley ran far deeper and darker than either of them could have imagined. The howl echoed again, this time closer and more menacing. It wasn't the cry of a wolf or coyote. It carried an otherworldly quality, as if born from something ancient and untamed. The stranger's hand instinctively moved to their side, where a long, curved blade hung in a worn leather sheath. Their movements were deliberate yet cautious, betraying years of experience in dealing with danger. "You've got questions," the stranger said, their voice low and urgent. "But right now we need to focus on survival." She nodded, though her mind raced with doubts. Who was this person? Could they truly be trusted? Yet despite her reservations, she followed as the stranger led her deeper into the valley, weaving between trees and rocks with practiced ease. The fire was left behind, its light extinguished to avoid drawing unwanted attention. As they ventured farther, the atmosphere shifted subtly. The air grew colder, carrying a faint metallic tang that made her stomach churn. Shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally long, twisting and writhing like living things. Even the usually serene sounds of night, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves, had fallen silent, leaving only an oppressive stillness. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, accompanied by another guttural growl. This time, it came not from the distance but directly ahead. They froze, exchanging tense glances before slowly raising their weapons. Through the dim light, shapes began to emerge from the darkness, hulking forms with glowing eyes that pierced through the veil of night. "What are those things?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. The stranger didn't answer immediately. Instead, they stepped forward slightly, squinting at the approaching figures. "I've heard stories about creatures like these," they finally admitted. "Some call them spirits of the land, guardians of places forbidden to outsiders. Others say they're remnants of old curses, bound to protect treasures buried long ago." Whatever they were, they exuded pure malice. Each step they took sent ripples through the earth, their massive claws scraping against stone and dirt. Saliva dripped from jaws lined with jagged teeth, steaming in the cool night air. And their eyes, those burning, unblinking eyes, seemed to peer straight into her soul. Her hands shook as she raised her rifle, aiming carefully at one of the nearest beasts. The stranger placed a hand on her arm, stopping her. "Don't waste your bullets," they warned. "We need to think strategically here." "But what else can we do?" she snapped, panic creeping into her voice. "They're going to tear us apart." "Not necessarily," the stranger replied cryptically. Reaching into their coat, they produced a small pouch filled with what appeared to be dried herbs. Tearing it open, they scattered the contents across the ground, muttering words in a language she couldn't understand. A faint glow emanated from the herbs as they touched the soil, forming a circle of light around them. To her astonishment, the creatures hesitated at the edge of the glowing barrier, their growls deepening in frustration. One lunged forward, only to recoil violently as though struck by an invisible force. Another circled cautiously, sniffing the air before letting out a deafening roar that shook the very trees. "They're powerful," the stranger explained, keeping their gaze fixed on the encroaching horde. "But even they respect certain boundaries. For now, this will hold them back." "For now," she repeated, her voice tinged with desperation. "How long is for now supposed to last?" "As long as we make it last," came the curt reply. "Come on, we need to move while we still have time." Without waiting for further protest, the stranger grabbed her arm and pulled her along, darting away from the glowing circle and deeper into the heart of the valley. Behind them, the creatures let out ear-splitting shrieks, their fury palpable even over the distance. She stumbled several times, her legs heavy with exhaustion, but the stranger refused to slow down. Eventually, they reached a narrow crevice carved into rock face, its entrance partially concealed by ivy and vines. The stranger pushed her inside, following close behind and pulling the foliage closed after them. Darkness enveloped them instantly, broken only by the faintest sliver of moonlight filtering through gaps in the stone. For a moment, neither spoke. Both were breathing heavily, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Then, the stranger lit a small lantern they'd been carrying, casting a warm amber glow over the cramped space. "We'll stay here until they lose interest," the stranger said, crouching near the entrance to keep watch. "If luck's on our side, they won't find us." Luck, however, proved fleeting. Not long after settling into their hiding spot, a low rumble reverberated through the walls of the crevice. Pebbles dislodged themselves from the ceiling, clattering to the floor below. The stranger cursed under their breath, rising quickly to inspect the source of the disturbance. "Something's coming," they muttered, their expression grim. "And I don't think it's just the beasts outside." Before she could ask what they meant, a figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the crevice. Unlike the monstrous guardians they'd encountered earlier, this newcomer bore a distinctly human form, or at least what had once been human. Its skin was gray and cracked, resembling weathered bark, and its eyes burned with an unnatural intensity. Clad in tattered robes, it moved with eerie grace, its presence filling the air with an unsettling chill. Who are you?" she stammered, backing away instinctively. The figure tilted its head, regarding her with an almost curious expression. "You carry the mark," it intoned, its voice a raspy whisper. "The amulet. It calls to me." Her fingers instinctively rose to touch the amulet hanging around her neck. A wave of dizziness washed over her as the creature's gaze locked onto the artifact, its eyes widening slightly. "You must choose," the figure continued, stepping closer despite the stranger's attempts to intervene. "Will you embrace the power it offers, or destroy it before it destroys you?" Before she could respond, the ground beneath them shuddered violently, sending debris cascading down from above. The three of them were forced to duck for cover as the crevice began to collapse, sealing off their escape route entirely. Trapped within the crumbling chamber, they faced an impossible decision, one that would determine not only their fates, but perhaps the fate of the entire valley itself. Hours passed, or perhaps mere minutes. Time seemed meaningless in the suffocating darkness. Dust filled the air, making every breath a struggle. The stranger tended to minor injuries sustained during collapse, while the mysterious figure remained eerily calm, standing apart from the others as though unaffected by the chaos surrounding them. Finally, when the tremor subsided enough for speech, the stranger broke the silence. "All right," they said, their tone sharp and direct. "Let's hear it. What exactly does this amulet do? Why are these things so obsessed with it?" The figure regarded them both solemnly before speaking. "The amulet is a key," it explained, "a fragment of an ancient artifact capable of unlocking immense power. Those who seek it covet control, not just over wealth or land, but over life itself. But such power comes at a cost. Many have tried to wield it, only to succumb to its corruption. And what happens if someone destroys it?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to remain composed. The figure hesitated, choosing its words carefully. Destruction carries risks. The energy contained within the amulet could unleash devastation upon the world. Or, if handled correctly, it might seal away the forces that guard it, freeing the valley from their influence forever. But how do we know which outcome will happen? The stranger interjected, skepticism evident in their tone. This all sounds like nothing more than superstition. It is no superstition, the figure countered sharply. Believe what you will, but the truth remains. The choice rests with her. All eyes turned to her, the weight of expectation crushing down upon her shoulders. She stared at the amulet, feeling its warmth radiating against her skin. Part of her yearned to believe in its promise of salvation, to use its power to save her brother, to end her struggles once and for all. Yet another part recoiled in horror at the thought of unleashing forces beyond comprehension. As dawn approached, casting faint beams of light through cracks in the rubble, she made her decision. Whatever consequences awaited, she knew one thing for certain. Running from her problems had only led her deeper into danger. It was time to face them head on. Reaching up, she removed the amulet from her neck and held it out before her, its glow intensifying as she did so. Closing her eyes, she focused on the memories that drove her. A brother lying helpless, a family torn apart by circumstance, a relentless pursuit of hope amidst despair. When she opened her eyes again, determination burned brightly within them. "I won't let fear dictate my choices anymore," she declared, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "If this amulet holds power, then I'll harness it. If it holds destruction, then I'll face it. Either way, I'm done hiding." With that, she stepped forward, ignoring the protests of the stranger and the warnings of the enigmatic figure. The amulet pulsed in response to her resolve, its light growing brighter until it illuminated the entire chamber. Outside, the valley trembled once more, as though awakening from a long slumber. And somewhere in the distance, the Black Ridge gang prepared to make their final move, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond their reach. The amulet's glow intensified, casting an ethereal light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. The air around them grew thick, charged with energy that crackled like static electricity. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the artifact aloft, its weight heavier than before, as though it were testing her resolve. From the shadows, the mysterious figure watched intently, their ancient eyes gleaming with a mixture of admiration and apprehension. "You tread a dangerous path," they warned, their voice carrying an edge of urgency. "Once begun, there is no turning back." She ignored the warning, focusing instead on the warmth emanating from the amulet. It wasn't just heat, it was a presence, alive and aware, responding to her intentions. She could feel it now, a torrent of raw power surging beneath its surface, waiting to be unleashed. Closing her eyes, she reached deep within herself, drawing upon every ounce of courage and determination she possessed. In that moment, everything changed. A deafening roar shook the chamber, followed by a blinding flash of light that forced everyone to shield their eyes. When the brilliance faded, the amulet floated above her palm, suspended as if defying gravity. Its glow had transformed into a radiant beacon, illuminating not only the crevice, but also revealing hidden inscriptions etched into the walls, symbols and runes that glowed faintly in response to the artifact awakening. The strangers staggered backward, awestruck. What is this?" they stammered, their weapon forgotten in their hand. "The amulet has chosen," the enigmatic figure replied, their voice tinged with reverence. "It recognizes her purpose." Her purpose. The words resonated within her, filling her with both clarity and dread. For the first time, she understood why the amulet had come to her. Not because of chance, but because of necessity. Its power wasn't meant to serve greed or vengeance. It was meant to restore balance, to heal wounds both literal and metaphorical. And while the choice to wield it terrified her, she knew she couldn't turn away. Outside the collapsed crevice, the valley erupted into chaos. The monstrous guardians, drawn by the amulet's activation, converged on the area, their roars echoing through the canyons. Trees bent and twisted under their passage, boulders shattered beneath their claws. Yet amidst the destruction, something extraordinary happened. The creatures began to falter, their aggression giving way to confusion. Some froze mid-step, their glowing eyes dimming as though losing focus. Others turned on one another, seemingly unaware of their own identities. Within the chamber, the amulet continued to radiate, its influence spreading outward in waves. The ground beneath them rumbled softly, as if the very earth itself responded to the shift in energy. Then, without warning, the amulet emitted a final burst of light, so intense it left afterimages burned into their retinas. When the glow subsided, the artifact crumbled into dust, leaving nothing but a faint shimmer where it had once been. For several long moments, silence reigned. The oppressive weight in the air lifted, replaced by a sense of calm so profound it felt almost unnatural. The stranger exhaled sharply, lowering their hand from their face. "Is it over?" they asked cautiously. "I believe so," the enigmatic figure replied, their tone subdued yet tinged with relief. "The amulet's power has been released, its purpose fulfilled. Whatever forces sought to control it are now neutralized, or at least they will be for some time." She stood frozen, staring at the empty space where the amulet had been. A strange emptiness filled her chest, accompanied by a lingering warmth that reassured her the decision had been the right one. Though the artifact was gone, its essence remained within her, a reminder of the strength she'd found within herself. Above ground, the valley transformed dramatically. The monstrous guardians vanished entirely, their forms dissolving into mist as though they'd never existed. In their place, the land healed itself. Cracked earth mended, dead vegetation sprouted anew, and streams flowed clearer than ever before. Birds returned to the skies, their songs harmonizing with the rustling leaves. It was as though the valley itself had awakened from a centuries-long slumber. Meanwhile, the Black Ridge gang approached the scene cautiously, their earlier bravado replaced by unease. They'd heard the commotion from miles away and rode hard to investigate, only to find themselves confronted by a sight none of them could explain. The valley appeared untouched by time, serene and unblemished, as though mocking their attempts to desecrate it. Red Hargrove dismounted his horse, scowling at the landscape before him. "Where is she?" he growled, scanning the surroundings with narrowed eyes. "And where's the gold?" His men exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence waning. None dared speak aloud the growing suspicion that perhaps the woman they hunted had transcended their understanding, that she was no longer merely a thief, but something far greater. Back in the crevice, the trio emerged carefully, blinking against the bright morning sunlight. The strangers stretched stiffly, adjusting their hat as they surveyed the transformed valley. "Well," they said finally, breaking the tense silence, "looks like we've stumbled onto something bigger than either of us expected." The enigmatic figure nodded, their expression unreadable. "Indeed, this place and its secrets will remain protected for generations to come. But remember, your actions today have set events in motion. Whether they lead to prosperity or peril depends entirely on how you choose to move forward." She absorbed the words silently, her mind racing with possibilities. Though relieved to have survived the ordeal, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, others would seek the power she'd relinquished, driven by motives darker than hers. And when they came, she would need to be ready. As the sun climbed higher into the sky, painting the valley in golden hues, she made a silent vow to herself. No matter what challenges lay ahead, she would face them head-on, with bravery, resilience, and the knowledge that even in the Wild West, hope could still prevail. But little did she know, the true test of her resolve was yet to come. For beyond the horizon, whispers of her deeds spread rapidly among those who lurked in the shadows, men and women whose ambitions knew no bounds. And when they learned of the power she'd harnessed, they would stop at nothing to claim it for themselves. Until then, she walked the line between survival and destiny, each step bringing her closer to the answers she sought and the danger she could scarcely imagine.